Nordic homeowners haven't touched rock salt in decades. Their driveways are pristine. Meanwhile, your driveway is cracking, your lawn edges are dying, and you're spending over $100 a season on a product that stops working the moment temperatures really drop. 5 specific methods, 0 chemicals, most under $20 for a full season. That is what separates a Nordic winter driveway from yours. It is early morning in January. The driveway is glazed. Cracked concrete catches the pale light. Dead plant stems line the edges where salt runoff did its quiet damage through autumn. A bag of rock salt sits by the garage door, half empty, doing less than the packaging promised. Sven Lindqvist sits in a warm study outside Uppsala, surrounded by hand-drawn drainage diagrams and a wood stove burning low. He looks at the camera without ceremony. "These aren't hacks," he says. "This is just how winter works up here." He has not bought a bag of salt in 31 years. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. The salt trap rock salt has one job: lower the freezing point of water, and for a long time, it seemed like enough. At temperatures around 25 degrees Fahrenheit, salt works reasonably well. Spread it on a wet surface and the chemistry kicks in. The ice softens, the driveway clears. You feel like you've solved something, but drop below 15 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly -9 Celsius, and rock salt stops working almost entirely. The chemical reaction slows. The product just sits there, a pale crust on a frozen surface, doing nothing. And in the regions where winter is genuinely cold, that threshold gets crossed regularly, sometimes for weeks at a stretch. That is the first problem. The second problem is what the salt does when it is not melting ice. Chloride ions, the active component in road salt, do not stay on the surface. They migrate. They penetrate concrete through existing microcracks, and once inside, they accelerate the freeze-thaw cycle at the molecular level. Water expands when it freezes. Salt-contaminated concrete does this faster and more aggressively. Within 3 to 5 winters of regular salt use, that process becomes visible. Spalling, surface flaking, cracks that were hairline become structural. Then there is the runoff. Every application washes toward the edges of the driveway with the first melt. That runoff carries chloride directly into the soil along the border. Lawn grass dies in strips. Ornamental plantings along the driveway edge go brown by February and do not come back in spring. And none of this is cheap. The average household reportedly spends between $80 and $150 per season on rock salt, applying it again and again because each application washes away or becomes ineffective as temperatures fall. Nordic civil engineer Ingrid Olsen put it plainly. Salt is a short-term answer to a structural problem. She has spent her career documenting what happens to driveways and paths that rely on it, and what happens to the ones that never did. The difference, she says, is not subtle. It is visible from the road. The question is not whether salt is bad. The question is what you use instead. And the answer has been sitting in Nordic tool sheds, ash buckets, and gravel yards for generations. The fireplace fix. Let's get straight into it, starting with number 1. It is a Tuesday morning in rural Dalarna, Sweden. The temperature outside is 12 degrees Fahrenheit. A thin layer of overnight snow has settled on the path between the house and the woodshed. The homeowner, a retired schoolteacher named Britta Engström, does not reach for a salt bag. She reaches for a bucket beside the wood stove. The bucket is full of ash. Wood ash is what most households treat as waste. You burn a cord of firewood through the winter, you produce ash, and you carry it outside in a metal pail and wonder where to put it. In Nordic households, the answer has been consistent for generations. You put it on the ice. The chemistry is straightforward. Wood ash contains potassium carbonate, a compound that lowers the freezing point of water. Not as aggressively as sodium chloride, but meaningfully. It works down to around 5 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly -15 Celsius. That is 10 degrees colder than the point where rock salt gives up entirely. But the thermal effect is what makes ash genuinely powerful. The dark gray color absorbs solar radiation. Even on a pale winter day with low sun angle, a thin layer of ash on a white or light gray driveway surface draws heat in. That absorbed warmth accelerates surface melt through the afternoon, working the physics from both directions at once. Chemical action from below, solar absorption from above. Finnish winter advisor Mikael Virtanen has documented ash use as standard rural practice across Finland and Sweden, noting that households with wood stoves have historically maintained clear paths and driveways throughout winter without any commercial product. He describes the application method as simple and consistent across regions. Clear the fresh snow manually first, then apply a thin, even layer of ash using a wide push broom. 1 pound of ash covers approximately 50 square feet. The broom distributes it without clumping. The surface goes from white to dark gray within seconds. This next one is the mistake almost everyone makes. They skip the manual clearing step. They apply ash directly over packed snow, expecting it to work from the top down through several inches of compression. It does not work that way. Ash needs surface contact. Fresh snow removal first, ash application second. That sequence matters. There is also a concern people raise immediately when ash is mentioned: mess, tracking. The idea of gray powder being carried indoors on boot soles. Virtanen addresses this directly. A thin application, properly swept, does not behave like loose powder. It bonds lightly with the surface moisture as it works. It does not migrate the way people expect, and it produces zero chemical runoff. No chloride, no soil damage, no dead grass along the edges come spring. You'd think someone would have said something. Nobody did. For decades, households outside the Nordic region kept buying salt while sitting next to a wood stove that was producing a functional, free alternative every single night. The ash went into the bin. The salt bags went onto the credit card. Britta Engström has a concrete path that is now over 40 years old. No spalling, no surface cracking. She has never applied a commercial de-icer. She uses ash from October through March, sweeping it out to the lawn border in spring where it acts as a mild soil amendment. The potassium that would have poisoned her lawn with salt instead feeds it. The cost of this method is zero. If you have a fireplace or wood stove, you are already producing the product. If you do not, some communities and neighbors with wood stoves will give ash away rather than dispose of it. It is a free byproduct that most of the modern world has simply forgotten how to use. The key moment comes when you first apply it on a genuinely cold morning, one of those days when salt would be sitting inert on the surface doing nothing. The ash works. The surface darkens. The solar gain kicks in. By midday, you have a clear, textured, grippable path that cost you nothing and damaged nothing. What changes after that first winter is the mindset. You stop thinking about ice as a chemical problem. You start thinking about it as a thermal and mechanical problem. And that shift is what opens up everything else on this list. Stick around. The one that matters most is still ahead. Keep that in mind because the next one builds on it. The ancient grip coming in at number 2, Grusning. It is October in Gothenburg. The first frost has not arrived yet, but it is coming. A homeowner named Per Svensson is backing a small trailer up his driveway. In the trailer, a quarter-ton of coarse granite gravel, 8 to 16 millimeter grade, sourced from a local aggregate yard for under $20. He is not reacting to ice. He is getting ahead of it. Grusning is the Swedish word for graveling. It is not a modern technique or a product category. It is a centuries-old practice applied to roads, farm paths, and home driveways across Sweden, Norway, and Finland before the first winter storm arrives. The logic is mechanical rather than chemical. You do not melt the ice. You create a surface that makes ice irrelevant. Coarse granite gravel applied in a consistent layer before the first frost does something that no de-icer can replicate. It locks into the surface as temperatures drop. The freeze-thaw cycle that damages concrete actually works in Grusning's favor. The gravel settles and beds into small irregularities, creating a textured matrix that provides grip at every temperature. -20 Fahrenheit, -30. It does not matter. The gravel does not stop working when the thermometer drops. There is no chemical threshold. There is no failure point. The grip is mechanical. Boot sole meets granite. Car tire meets granite. The physics is simple and it does not care about temperature, but the next one is where the real money is. Per spreads the gravel with a wide push broom, working it into an even layer across the full driveway surface. The application takes about 40 minutes for a standard 2-car driveway. He will not touch it again until April, which, looking back, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The first time a Nordic homeowner told a visitor from further south about Grusning, the response was apparently skepticism. Just gravel? On the driveway? What about when it washes away? What about tracking it inside? The answers are consistent across every documented application. Granite gravel in the 8 to 16 millimeter range does not wash away under normal precipitation. It is heavy enough to stay in place through rain, snowmelt, and foot traffic. It does not track indoors the way smaller particles do because it is too large to be carried on a boot sole without being noticed and knocked off at the door. And in spring, when the snow is gone and the driveway is clear, you sweep the gravel to the lawn edges. You collect it, you store it. The following October, you spread it again. One purchase, Used for years, the cost per season drops to effectively zero after the first year. Zero chemical runoff, zero concrete damage, zero soil contamination along the borders. The most valuable one on this list is still coming, but grusening represents something important in the Nordic approach to winter. It is the recognition that fighting ice with chemistry is expensive, temporary, and cumulative in its damage. Replacing the surface condition entirely, giving boots and tires something to grip regardless of what the ice does underneath, is cheaper, permanent, and requires no ongoing product purchase. There is a moment in late January after a freezing rain event when a graveled driveway and a salted driveway side by side tell the whole story. The salted driveway is a sheet of refrozen melt. The salt was applied, the surface partially cleared, the temperature dropped again, and the water refroze smooth. The graveled driveway looks identical in terms of ice coverage, but you can walk on it. You can drive on it. The grip is there regardless of the surface condition above it. Per Svensson has been using grusening for 11 years. He has not bought a de-icing product in that time. His driveway surface is in better condition than when he started, because nothing has been eating into the concrete chemistry season after season. The gravel does not fight winter. It simply makes winter's worst effects structurally irrelevant. $0 after year one. Zero chemicals ever. One afternoon in October and the problem is handled until April. On to the next one. The invisible fix. Number 3, and most people never hear about this one at all. It is February in rural Norway. A homeowner named Astrid Haugen walks her driveway after a thaw-refreeze cycle. She is looking for ice patches. She finds none. Her neighbor, 50 meters away, is chipping at a sheet of black ice with a metal bar. They get the same weather. They have the same temperature. The difference between their driveways was built into the ground 15 years ago. Astrid's driveway drains. Her neighbor's does not. Pay attention to this next one. It changes everything else. The root cause of persistent ice patches on most residential driveways is not temperature, and it is not snowfall. It is water that has nowhere to go. Flat driveways, or driveways that slope even slightly toward the house, collect meltwater during the afternoon when temperatures are above freezing. That water pools in low points. When the temperature drops again overnight, it refreezes. Smooth, flat, bonded to the surface. And it comes back every single thaw-refreeze cycle through the entire winter. You are not fighting ice. You are fighting standing water that has not been given a path out. The Nordic engineering standard for residential driveways addresses this at the design level. A minimum 2% cross slope, which works out to roughly 1 inch of drop per 4 feet of width, directs water away from the driveway surface and toward the edges before it can pool. That slope is barely visible to the eye, but it is the difference between water that drains in minutes and water that sits and waits to refreeze. Norwegian civil engineer Ingrid Olsen has documented rural Norwegian properties using this grading standard since the mid-20th century. Properties built and graded to this specification reportedly show near zero repeat icing across full winters, even in regions with regular thaw-refreeze cycles. The ice does not come back because the water does not stay. And no, I'm not making that up. The fix is not a product, it is a slope. For driveways that already exist and cannot be regraded easily, the French drain provides the same result from the edge. A 6-inch trench along the driveway border, filled with coarse gravel and a perforated pipe at the base, captures meltwater at the point where it would otherwise pool and redirects it away from the surface before overnight temperatures can freeze it in place. The water moves. The ice does not form. The one-time installation cost for a DIY French drain runs between $150 and $400, depending on driveway length and local material costs. The result is permanent. No ongoing product purchase, no annual maintenance beyond checking that the drain outlet stays clear. The drainage infrastructure works the same in year 15 as it did in year 1. This is the method that makes every other method on this list more effective. Ash and gravel both work better on a surface that is not repeatedly accumulating standing water. Thermal mass techniques work better when the surface is not sitting in a puddle that freezes solid overnight. Mechanical removal is faster and more complete when you are clearing fresh snow from a dry surface rather than chipping bonded ice from a pooled refreeze. Astrid Haugen's driveway does not require heroic maintenance effort because the water problem was solved before winter started. Her neighbor chips ice every thaw cycle because the water problem was never addressed, and every other intervention is compensating for that unfixed root cause. The key moment in this method is the recognition that you are solving a hydrology problem, not a temperature problem. Once you see it that way, the solution is obvious. Grade the surface, move the water, remove the condition that creates ice. One-time fix, permanent result. The driveway stops fighting you. That's one handled. On to the next one. The surface that remembers heat. Call back to that icy driveway at dawn. Pale concrete, white surface, low January sun barely clearing the roofline. The light hits it and bounces off. The surface temperature barely moves all day. By evening, the meltwater from noon has refrozen. Now picture the same driveway, same temperature, same sun. But the surface is dark granite, basalt pavers laid in a clean grid, edges tight, joints filled with coarse gravel. The sun hits, and something different happens. Dark stone absorbs 20 to 30% more solar radiation than pale concrete. The surface warms. It holds that warmth into the evening, keeping the temperature above freezing longer than the concrete next door ever could. Water drains through the gravel joints before it pools. Ice cannot bond to a surface that is still radiating stored heat at 9 in the evening. This is thermal mass paving. It is common across Danish and Swedish urban driveways, often chosen for aesthetic reasons, a clean, dark surface that looks deliberate and European. But the winter maintenance benefit is structural. The aesthetic choice doubles as engineering. You do not treat it, you do not product it. The surface does the work. For existing driveways, a retrofit option exists. Dark paver border strips along the zones that ice most frequently, typically the base of the driveway near the street and any flat transition areas, shift surface temperatures measurably for $50 to $100 in materials. Not a full replacement, a targeted intervention at the exact points where ice bonds first. The physics works even in strip form. This is the legacy of Nordic winter thinking, not a product, not a treatment, a surface that is designed to use the available physics: heat, drainage, texture, slope. Every element working together so that winter is not an emergency you respond to. It is a condition your driveway was built to handle. The icy driveway at dawn, the cracked concrete, the dead plants along the edge. None of that is inevitable. It is the result of designing a surface without asking what winter actually does to it. The shovel is still the most powerful tool. Use it first. Use it fast. Use it every time. Ice's story isn't unique. Every surface that fails in winter failed because someone waited too long to clear it. Watch the next video on screen right now.